was here, I might be tempted if he fell asleep though.
Far enough back so you couldn't reach it.
Oh, you never know. I'm not that old, John.
And the stick isn't that long.
You know, always a preacher. Always gotta have the last word. Some people never change, John. I'll be praying for your wife. Careful, don't say it. Obedience. Obedience. I wish my children could see that. They never learned that. Donna, where's Donna? Church said, Donna. Yes, I thought so. I saw Donna. She said she wouldn't be able to sing today because she's got a bug that really has infected her throat. It's hard to sleep, and she's hoping to get over it. She's on antibiotics, but you know, when I came in, Donna, I didn't realize that they actually had you on the screen up there. Yeah, that picture was taken just recently. Yeah, that was a great picture of you. Did you see that? That friendly reminder, that person there, the secretary who was kind of frazzled and everything else. I thought, that's got to be Donna. That's got to be Donna. I'm just joking. Thank you again for the invitation. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to be here. One of the things I learned when I pastored in Santa Monica, it was a great church, great people there. The Spirit was cooking on all four burners, but one of the older gentlemen, who also had a cane, John, but he became a close friend of mine. But one of the things that he said periodically, over and over again, which I've never forgot, he said, Pastor, he said, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be a Christian.
Amen.
And I thought, wow, talk about the words of wisdom. I've learned more. I can't speak for you, Dan, but I've learned more from the people in my congregation than maybe what we can learn even in seminary. Seminary is great and you need to go there. I have no complaints about it whatsoever, but I've learned so much. So just thank you for allowing me to be a part of your family and teaching me. Most of the things you teach me, I'm thankful for. So thank you. Please take your Bibles right now and turn with me. Turn with me to a very familiar passage. One that is read around this time every year. Luke records, and Luke was a medical doctor. And so, it's natural that he would record about the birth of a child. But in the first 7 verses of chapter 2, Luke says, in those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. And so everyone went to his own town to register for the census. And so Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee, down south to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and the line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in swaddling clothes and placed him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. And then from Revelation, the last book in the New Testament, from Revelation chapter 3, verse 20, Jesus said, Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice, opens the door, I will come in and eat with them and they with me. Behold, said Jesus, I stand at the door and knock. My name is Ishkar. I'm an innkeeper in Bethlehem. Several days ago, it became important for me to go to Jerusalem on business for my inn. And something strange, really strange, took place there. When I arrived, I discovered the city to be in a tremendous uproar. There was a lot of talk, a lot of excitement. I mean, everyone there throughout the entire city, everyone seemed to be affected. I inquired what was going on, what was happening, and was told that the Romans were crucifying 3 men. But the one whom they kept talking about, though, was named Jesus. He was a different kind of man. He had gone about the countryside preaching and teaching, and he had a tremendous following. It was also said that he healed people too. Now, I've already heard about this because some of the people in my inn, some of my guests, not all, but a few of them, had personally shared with me that he had healed them too. Others, though, in the city were saying that he was even the Messiah, the one who's to come, to the long-awaited one who's going to redeem Israel, save her from her enemies. Messiah? Come on. Who was to know at that point what to believe? Anyway, I managed to finish my business for the day. And having a few more hours of daylight left before beginning my trip back to Bethlehem, I decided to go outside the city, outside to that hill called Golgotha, a hill which looked like a skull. I just wanted to see for myself what was going on. But I was especially curious about this man, Jesus. And up there at the hill as I arrived, where they normally crucified the people, there were 3 men on 3 crosses being crucified by the Romans. The man in the middle was Jesus, they said. And yet, unlike the other 2 hanging on either side of him, there were no curses spewing from his lips. Now that didn't make any sense to me. Because the pain that had to be ripping through his body because of the nails that were just tearing his flesh apart. You should have seen him up there. Twisting, turning, contorting, writhing. The unbelievable anguish, the horrific agony. The one on his right, he was going through the same thing. But he was just, the obscenities were flying all over the place. And yet this Jesus, despite the pain and the twisting and the turning, he didn't seem angry or even resentful towards those who were trying to kill him. In fact, he was rather quiet. When he did say something, it seemed more like a prayer. I mean, at one point I thought I heard him say, "Father, forgive them for," and then I couldn't hear the rest because of the noise of the crowd behind me. But what he said seemed more like a prayer than just talk. At least that's the way it was to those who were nearby. No yelling, no screaming, no cursing. Why? It didn't make any sense. Hey, he was unlike any man, any person, unlike anyone that I had ever seen before. I then noticed a small group of people there at the foot of the cross where he was hanging. They were so different in contrast to the crowd behind me that was getting uglier by the minute, where they're screaming and yelling and cursing. They weren't doing that, but they were looking at this one, as if he were doing it for them. I asked who they were and was told that one of them was his mother. His mother. Can you imagine a mother watching that? And her name was Mary. Mary. There was something as I tried to get closer for a better look, and then I was able to see her a little bit clearer. There was something about this Mary that caught my attention. She was so familiar in a distant sort of way. As I said before, I'm an innkeeper. And it's important for me to know my guests. I try to become familiar with them so I can recognize them and then let them know, hey, and they know that I recognize them. It gives them a good feeling, and therefore, it's good. It's good for the bottom line. It's good for business. What was it, though, about this Mary? What was it that was so familiar? And what was it about this man who also caught my attention? That was so compelling. I turned to someone at my side and said, "Tell me about that man on the cross, the one right there in the middle." He said, "His name is Jesus." Well, I already knew that. And that he was from Nazareth, where he grew up as a child, but that he was born in Bethlehem. Bethlehem. Bethlehem, I said. Yes, Bethlehem, he replied. When was he born there? Well, let's see, he said. It was during the census under Caesar Augustus, so that had to be, let's see, 33 years ago. 33 years ago. Suddenly, and listen, you may find this hard to believe, but suddenly I remembered. I remember why she was so familiar. This woman, his mother, had come to my inn one night about 33 years ago, and she was heavy with child. I mean, really pregnant. And she and her husband were so tired, so weary from their travels from Nazareth all the way to Bethlehem, about 75 miles. I mean, they were totally exhausted. I had no room. No room. My inn was filled with people who had come to Bethlehem for the census. I couldn't mess around with that arrangement and move them around. They were already comfortable. But I did the best that I could. I told her that there's a stable nearby. And they went there. And it was there that their baby, their son, was born. I almost forgot that they were there. I was so busy with my guest, I almost forgot. But I do remember this. They weren't alone. Shepherds came. But you know, I thought they were just relatives. How was I to know that he might be the Messiah? It's not like they're born every day. And they're definitely not born in the stable. Messiah born in the stable? No way. The Messiah is a warrior. He's a king. He's not born in the stable. It just doesn't make any sense. No way. But that was a long time ago. As I looked up at him hanging on that old rugged cross, I couldn't stop thinking that they had knocked at my door, but that there was no room. You see, I've always operated on a first-come, first-served basis. That's what really matters. That's what really counts in business. Some of you may be business people. You understand that. At least that's what counts in my business. I was so busy then taking care of business that I never took the time to think about what was the right decision to make, to put first things first. In fact, to be honest with you, it seems like most of my life I've put second things first and not first things first. I was so busy with my guests, taking good care of them because I wanted their money when they returned back to Bethlehem. So busy with my guests that I didn't make any room in my inn. As I stood there on Golgotha, watching, and it just seemed like hours were passing. All these thoughts and more were just flooding through my mind. Suddenly I realized I'd stayed there longer than I had planned. The sun was already beginning to set. It was too late for me to begin my return back to Bethlehem. And so I decided to return back to Jerusalem. But this time, given all that I'd learned and realizing the almost connections that were made, I returned as I watched with a heavy heart and decided to stay a few extra days just to give myself more time to process everything I've seen, everything that I had experienced up to that point. Early the second morning there, I was ready to return home when I heard the news. It was whispered news, and yet spreading with lightning speed. Jesus was no longer dead, but alive. Alive? Hey, how could that be? I just saw him a few days ago hanging on that cross, and he died. He died right before my eyes. What are you talking about? How could that be? And yet that's what they were saying. Apparently some of his friends had gotten up early that morning and gone to the garden where the tomb was located. And the huge stone that had been blocking the entrance of the tomb had mysteriously been rolled away. And the guards that had been there were nowhere to be found. But they said that two angels were there. And the angels said that he, Jesus, wasn't there, but alive, that he had risen from the dead. And you know, his friends, they ran all the way back to Jerusalem to tell the disciples. And then two of those disciples,
what were their names? Peter and John. They ran all the way to the garden to see for themselves. And it was true. It was true. He was gone. And then they actually saw him for themselves, and he was alive.
Amen.
I was so confused, so bewildered. I couldn't go back to Bethlehem. I didn't know what to do. And so I spent the whole day going out through Jerusalem trying to find out everything, anything that I could about this Jesus. Whether or not Ishkar became a follower of Jesus Christ, we really don't know. Scripture doesn't say. And yet down through the ages, down through the centuries, down through the generations, this same Jesus has been knocking at the heart's door of every man and woman, boy and girl. And some have let him in, and others have had no room. They've had no room because they're so preoccupied with other things, other concerns, other people. I mean, let's face it, let's be honest with each other. If you let them in, it just might affect business. It might affect values and priorities. It might affect families and friends, or that special relationship you're trying to cultivate. It might affect the bottom line in whatever you're into, like it did for Ishkar. You say, wait a minute, Steve. That's not fair. Ishkar had no idea. He had no idea that the Christ child, Mary was carrying this Christ child. He had no idea. It's just not fair. I mean, if someone told him ahead of time, if someone had told him before this all happened that Mary and Joseph were coming to Bethlehem, that the Christ child was to be born, that the angels would be announcing his coming. But he didn't know that. If he did, it would have made all the difference in the world. He just did not know. And yet, is it any different today? Is it? We never know. We never know when the great possibilities of God stand right there before us. We see, in a sense, a stranger. And we say, wait a minute, there's no room for you. Or I'm too busy. Come back. Come back when it's more convenient. And unfortunately, that's what happened to Ishkar. He was too busy, too preoccupied to make room for Jesus. This morning, 2,000 years later, right here in this place, is it any different? In Revelation chapter 3, verse 20, Jesus said back then, and he's saying to us right now, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice, opens the door, I will come in and eat with them and they with me. That is, I'll establish a relationship with them, the likes of which they've never experienced before. Behold, said Jesus, I stand at the door and knock. This morning, during this very special Christmas season, Jesus may be standing at the door of your life, knocking. And you have one of two choices. Either you can open the door and let him in, or like Ishkar, you can send him away. You can send him away because it's just not convenient. This morning, in this moment, have you any room? Have you any room for Jesus? He who bore your load of sin. As he knocks and asks admission, will you let him in? There's room for pleasure. There's room for business. But for Christ the crucified, is there a place in your life in which he can enter, in that heart for which he died? This morning, have you any room for Jesus? He may be knocking at the door of your life right now. It's not next week. It's not even December 25th that you should make your move. If he's knocking, you answer. You invite him in. And this morning, I invite you, very simply, to invite Jesus Christ into your life, to make room for him. And if you've done this before, maybe it's just a corner of your life, open up your heart, open up your life fully and completely to make room for the fullness of the Spirit and love of Jesus Christ this morning. If you have never opened that door of your life to him, right now, what better way to prepare for the Christmas celebration than to open up your life and make room for Jesus? This morning, as we turn to hymn number 400,